talked about the end user's view of faceted classification. Now let's talk about the architect's view. The end user sees facets as a progressive revealing of items, a narrowing down of items, and it may appear hierarchical to them, it may appear like a search to them, and in fact it's confused in that way because it actually has aspects of both. Let's look at it from the perspective of the architect, the person who's creating the faceted classification, and also from the perspective of the concepts that we've already gone through in this class. And the way to do that, I think, is to contrast it with the advanced search. You'll remember that advanced search has a series of indexes all revealed on the screen simultaneously. The user makes choices from all of those indexes, and because of their choices, they get a result set. They get a set of items that match all the choices that they made. Let's now look at a faceted classification as a variation on that exact same theme. Now the indexes, instead of being displayed all at once and you choose all of your items from all of your indexes, hit the search button and get back a set of results, now all of those indexes, and also instead of being trapped inside of drop-down lists, they're all displayed on the screen at the same time. Instead of specifying them all at the same time and then hitting search, you specify one at a time and then hit search, and then you specify another and hit search. So you can think of it as a set of indexes, and each of the items on the screen, they really are indexes. It's not a hierarchy in any sense. The representation behind the scenes is not a hierarchical representation, it's an indexical representation. All of the facets are different indexes. Each index is represented in the info base, and I can either choose to put all the indexes on there at the same time and give you a search button so that you can search all the values of the indexes simultaneously, or I could choose to progressively reveal. Let you search from one index, and then that narrows it down, it filters, let you search from the other index, that filters, it narrows it down again, until you get to the end and you have very few items. The result set, by the way, is pretty much the same. The result set from a faceted classification or from a advanced search is really the same. I do some part of a search, I do some part of a query, I do some part of a revealing of items, and I get back a results list. And I scan through that results list and decide whether it's got what I want or not. And if I then choose to go further in an advanced search, I might say I'm narrowing my query. And once again, I would specify lots and lots of values all at the same time. If I'm in a faceted classification, I would say that I'm further browsing down. I'm clicking on another value, and in effect adding that to the list of the values that are used to filter the items. So the essential difference between advanced search and faceted classification: in advanced search, I specify all my criteria all at the same time. In faceted classification, I specify them one at a time. Behind the scenes, however, they're exactly the same. They are based on a set of indexes that are applied to the items, and I can either choose my search to be against all of those indexes simultaneously, or I can choose my search to be about one index at a time. And either way, I have a choice of how to represent that on the screen. I have a choice of what it looks like on the screen when I represent that. And when I represent it as expanded indexes with all the values and the number of items that meet those values on the screen all at the same time, with clicks so that you can click on any of those values and specify a filter for the results, I call it a faceted classification, or a faceted browse, or a faceted search. When I put them all in drop-down list boxes and they're all on the same screen at the same time, and then I have one search button that applies them all against the results, all against the items all at the same time, now I call it advanced search. So I want you to look at those two things as different representations of the same underlying access structures. The underlying access structures are a set of indexes. I can expose them as a faceted classification, I can expose them as advanced search, I can expose them as both if that's what I choose to do. So let's take a look at the screen that you have for this topic, and you can see in user interface language how this works. I have my different facets on the screen. So one facet is called document type, one facet is called accused, one facet is called keyword, and under accused, for example, I have an alphabetical index of all the accuseds. And that's an index of accused that's represented inside the info base and exposed on the screen here, not as a drop-down list box, but as an expanded list. And you'll see all the names with the number of items that are indexed by that accused type. Similarly, we have keywords, and they work exactly the same way. How many keywords, abusive process, how many items are keyworded, have that metadata index value applied to them? 28. Now, we have something somewhat more interesting going on in the document type. That's a facet, But under that facet, what do you see? Very interesting. We now have something that's called an index, right? It's the index of document type, but that index itself contains what? Contains a hierarchy, right? So we're getting already a little bit more sophisticated. Not a direction I necessarily want to go here, but I want to show you how our simple concepts can always be complicated by hybridizing them, by saying, well, it's an index of document type, but it's a hierarchical index. Everything's indexed by document type, but that index contains a hierarchy so that I have index items and sub-index items. Okay, so then finally, I have a little bit of advanced search kind of functionality going on here, where I can say the from and the to date. I don't want to specify every from and to date on the screen. That would just be onerous, right? I'd have a lot of dates, and most of them would only have one item. Here comes a giant garbage truck, so I hope you can still hear me. Most of them only have one item attached to them. So why would I put a whole list of dates on the screen? However, I do want the user to be able to specify a date range and get back only items that meet that date range. So how would I do that? I combine the faceted approach with a sort of an advanced I'll just let them go by. I combine the faceted approach with the advanced search approach, and now I have those hybridized on the screen as well. So a pure faceted classification, this is not. It's not purely indexes. Excuse me, it is indexes, but all those indexes are not purely flat lists. Well, at least one of them is a hierarchy. It's not a purely faceted classification representation. It's kind of merged with the advanced search representation. However, it does describe this idea of faceted classification, where I progressively reveal. At every turn, I'm only selecting one thing, I'm applying that to results, and then getting back those results.